In today's episode, SLP Stress Management for the festive season, I have the joy of interviewing the one and only Jessi Andricks, MSCCC-SLP, and host of the SLP Stress Management Podcast. So this is a podcast crossover, baby. And in today's episode, we tackle functional strategies to address all of those scary places in your life right now. I get it. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of utter exhaustion because we are still in a pandemic. We are still doing therapy, some face to face, some virtually, and we're still attempting a variation of hybrid schooling, homeschooling. Do I send my children to school? What's going on? And trying to manage self care. So join us for this amazing hour where the ever present and ever calm Jessi guides us through with some joyful strategies. And everybody, we're off next week, so happy early Thanksgiving. All right, y'all. It's almost that time of year again. Turkeys, trimmings, gravies, candles, lots of candles, trees, gifts, and the lovely extra holiday 15 pounds. Whoop, whoop, for some killer stretchy leggings for the incoming carb-based diet that I personally plan to consume over the next 6 weeks. Huzzah! I jest, but only slightly because that's really going to happen. I mean, hopefully not all 15. Okay, so in the mix of all that we've been through this year, the holidays in 2020 will probably be unlike any other. And for a lot of us out there will be stress because let's pick a struggle. One, tight finances because we haven't been able to work regularly or reliably. Two, inability to travel and see our loved ones because of travel bans. 3, inability to visit our loved ones due to health restrictions, maybe for them, maybe for yourself, maybe for your child. 4, the stress of trying to schedule patients in the middle of the pandemic with ever-changing school schedules and now the upcoming holiday schedule. And 5, I'm just going to say this because for some of us, like my very large combustible family, the recent election and the stress of the results, which at least, I mean, my family, we're loud. We love each other, but we're loud. It is going to make for some colorful language, red cheeks, and some interesting extended conversations to be held in the not so distant future family gatherings between corn pudding and the best collard greens known to mankind. So, yeah, we got that. Stress. And stress can do some terrible things to a body, especially when that body is an SLP who needs to use their mindful self, their full therapeutic presence to see positive outcomes happen with their patients. So where does that leave us? Well, today I have a beautiful solution. Technically, it's Ms. Jessi Andricks, and she has the beautiful solutions. And it is the one and only Ms. Jessi Andricks with the SLP Stress Management Podcast. And I am so happy that you are here, Jessi. So welcome to First Bite Lady, and yay!
Thank you so much for having me today. I am really excited to be here and to talk all things holiday and mindfulness. And just like you said, there is a lot of things that, especially this year, that can be, triggering stress and adding to the stress that as SLPs we normally feel anyway. And it's going to be an interesting holiday season for all of us, for sure.
Yes. But I am okay, so every month we've been joking about the new Jumanji board. Mm-hmm. And I am pleased to say September did not include the super volcano because that's what I had done for September. So we don't have that stress. But I did see somewhere, and I'm sure it was Photoshop, that I think it was Hurricane S, whichever the hurricane was that had the S letter. Sammy, no, that's my niece. Oh Lord, it just hit whatever. There was a fishnet caught with an actual shark that was like hanging because of like where it came in. And I was like, and they were like, whoever picked sharks hanging from light poles for Jumanji, you won. And I
Right?
was,
I saw that. I saw that too, and it was one of those things, like, I don't know if I should be looking up if this is real or not, because I normally would be like, "This isn't real," and now I'm just not sure.
oh my god. Huh, yeah, yeah, that's when you bust out the verify fact checkers like
Yep.
things. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. All right. So you've been rather busy, and before we go into this, you did something really cool where you set up like weekly stress management like classes and courses, because I got weekly email inspirational emails. So can you talk to us a little bit about that just you just held?
Yes. So, I am an SLP, and then I also went through, because of stress, I took a big break from being an SLP and thought that it was the wrong career choice and had this like big quarter life crisis really about it. But but it happens, and it was really due to stress. It was not the wrong career. It was just not knowing how to manage stress. And so I ended up training in yoga and coaching and mindfulness and all of these things that now, as an SLP, put together to help myself, but to help other SLPs, because I don't want
Mhm.
anyone else to have, whatever we want to call it, burnout, quarter life crisis, just chronic stress, feeling like it's the wrong choice, the wrong career, needing to quit, whatever it might be. Um,
Mhm.
and so one of the ways that I've started, working with everyone is to put together this course called SLP Stress Management, because that's just the easiest thing to remember, right?
Yeah.
And that's what it is. Um, but yeah, I run it a few times a year as a like live group where it's a course that you go through each week. You get videos and workbook and these kind of emails that help walk you through what you'll be talking about or learning about. And it really starts as a foundation of, here's what stress is, here's why it's not your fault, and here's what might be triggering it for you and what's going on, why it's happening. And then it starts to build into what stress management is, the tools you can use, and then how to actually make this happen in your life and in your day and the way that you need it to be. And we have some live calls that people can participate in or listen to after. And then we also have a self paced version. Like, if you're like, that's cool, but I don't want all of the weekly stuff, I just need it when I need it. There's also a
Mhm.
self-paced version of it that you can just kind of do on your own and, go through it as you need to. So it's there to help all, SLPs and all of us that are dealing with not only the stress that we're feeling in this year, but the stress that we felt in, 2010, 2012, 2019, all of the stress that we've just been feeling for a really long time in our field. And then this year happened and just added to it all.
Mhm. Mhm. I'm only laughing because you say 2010, and I was like, dude, that was a great year. The year Christian and I eloped. 2009,
Oh,
not such a great year, but I mean, I did get divorced and then quickly fell back in love and got remarried and like life. But like,
yeah.
yeah. Mhm, mhm, mhm. What is the thing? The Britney circa 2010, isn't that a thing? Or Britney circa 2009? That picture where she shaves her head. Like,
Oh
do
my
you know what
gosh.
I'm talking?
Yes.
It's like the one pop media reference I know. Yes, I'm culturally relevant. Oh, my stars. Okay, so but y'all, I would highly recommend checking it out because it is great advice, and the self-pacing piece helps. Yes. Okay. All right. So let's take it from the top then. Dun dun dun. After I make a Britney joke. God help us all. Okay. So what is mindfulness, and how can we use to channel it to help manage stress?
Yeah.
Especially for us.
Right. Especially
Yeah.
for us, for SLPs,
Especially for
especially.
the SLPs in your life. Yes.
Yeah. So it's one of those things that sometimes we think of mindfulness as being something that's really trendy in the last few years, and as something that is almost like when we hear self-care or we hear, just kind of those type of things. We think of like, oh yeah, that's the thing everyone's into right now. But mindfulness has been around for a long time. And the reason that it's kind of gotten trendy now or more mainstream is because they've started studying it more. Because people have always been like, hey, when I do these mindfulness practices and I'm going through this, I feel really good. This is good for us. And then people were like, okay, but like, what is actually happening with our body and our brain? And why are we feeling so good when we use mindfulness in our life? So that's kind of why it's popular. And all it really is taking different types of practices, whether it's meditation or journaling or going and walking outside or yoga or, whatever really just helps you to check in with yourself and to notice what's there. So I always like to think of mindfulness as tuning in to how you're doing and also tuning into the world around you and what's going on in that moment. So being present not only to yourself, but also to what's happening around you. And, I used to live in Charleston, South Carolina, which is probably one of the most beautiful places in the world.
Yes,
And
yes, very much so.
right? It's I know you're not far from there. It's just this amazing, and if you're listening and you've never been there, when you are allowed to travel again and you can go places freely, it's just a wonderful,
Go.
beautiful place to go. But
Yes.
one of the things to be careful there is the cobblestone sidewalks. And I always think of mindfulness. I always like have this image in my head of springtime in Charleston because there are these beautiful flowers there that just smell lovely, but there's also cobblestone sidewalks. So if you walk on the sidewalks and you're downtown and you're being mindful, but you're only being mindful and checking in with yourself and the lovely time you're having and how wonderful you feel, you're going to trip on those sidewalks and you're going to fall flat on your face. But if you only pay attention to the sidewalk and you're only paying attention to what's going on, with your feet and where you're going, and you're only focused on that, you're going to miss the beauty of everything else around you, and you're also going to miss what's going on within you and how you're experiencing that. So that's what I always think of as mindfulness, is noticing what's going on where you're at, but then also what's going on within you. And any moment can be made mindful if you're checking in with yourself on that. And so, since anything can be made more mindful, that's how we can use it to help manage our stress. We can check in with like what is actually going on with us and how we're feeling, even if it's really uncomfortable and we're not, happy with how we're feeling. And we wish that we could be feeling a different way or that circumstances were different. We can check in with ourselves and see, okay, how am I feeling? What is something that I need in this moment or I need to start doing that can help me with this stress? And as SLPs, with everything that we experience right now in our lives and maybe the changes of like, being able to work from home or having to work from home now and not really knowing how that's going to be, or not knowing what your school year is even going to look like for either your students or yourself or your kids, or if you're working in home health, like is that even possible at times now, and figuring out schedules, just everything being so uncertain. And then also the other things like the caseloads, the productivity, the paperwork, all those things that we were already really stressed out about. This can really help us to check in and say, okay, how am I doing right now? Do I need a moment of quiet because it's just been a very noisy day, either in our mind or like, we talk, right? That's our job. We talk, we help other
Yeah.
people talk. So sometimes we need a moment of quiet, or we need time to write about our day and write about that stressful moment, or to remember some things that were actually good about our day and not just the things that were really challenging, because we tend to be perfectionists as SLPs. I don't know if that's like, why we get into the field or if the field turns us into that, but it's so then we're like, what are the things that didn't work and how can I fix these? We forget about the things that actually like did go well,
Mhm.
you know?
I lay awake at night when I can't sleep and I focus on my failures, because I seriously think in order to get into grad school to be a speech pathologist, there's a secondary prerequisite for having a baseline anxiety disorder and a third requirement, tertiary requirement, to have a OCD complex to some extent. And
Yeah.
I don't, I mean, part of me is saying that in jest, and part of me is like, no, but like seriously, because every single SLP that I've met, that I've had a candid conversation with, we all have some light type of anxiety disorder, whether it be social anxiety or, I mean, that's that's mine. I am great on a podcast. You put me in a small group and I just start word vomiting and drop the F bomb
Yep.
because
I'm
like
right there with
I
you.
I get so nervous, and then I'm like, "Oh my god, this is not professional. Just put me back on the front porch now." Like, I'm comfortable there, but around a fire pit, everything's grand, right? But yes, but like really truthfully, also your analogy for walking on cobblestones, all I can see are the lovely bachelorette parties on Saturday nights when the girls go to Charleston, and because they're all in black, and then they have the bride in a white dress and they're trying to
Mhm.
meander down the cobblestone streets. They are not mindful. And if they are, it has been
Oh.
diluted.
No,
But
it's
like,
true, it's true. I
yes.
lived there. I lived there in my early 20s. It's where I went to
Mhm,
grad school, and then it's where we lived when I got married and all my friends are getting married. So,
mhm.
yes, it's
Yep,
not
yep.
mindful.
It's not okay. So this is important for SLPs, to be new SLPs that are going through career changes all the
Mhm,
way up. And I told Jesse right before I hit the record button, y'all, our our own university program has embedded mindfulness activities into our core syllabi for every single class. Because as much as I joke that we all have some level of anxiety, we're really seeing it. And I
mhm,
don't know if that's just a generational component, or if that's even in the middle of a pandemic, if that's something to do with the pace that our nation's keeping right now.
mhm.
And I think it's probably both, um, probably all three. And so I assigned some of Jesse's episodes to coincide for my students with midterm and final exams, because I wanted them to have a moment of mindfulness and to have the functional strategies, because stress is hard, but physically checking in with ourselves. And you said something about like asking yourself the question, what do I need this moment? And what did I do today? Like my interpretation is like, what did I do today to make myself happy?
Mhm.
And and we do that as a pack. Sorry, we call ourselves Pack Dawson, like my husband, myself, the kids, and the dogs. And so before bed every night, we always start with, okay, what was your low point? And then what was your high point? That way we're ending on a high. So that way when I tuck my babies into bed at night, yeah, they may have had a low point. Like maybe somebody took their favorite pencil and they were upset because they didn't get the purple sparkly one. That was a recent issue for Bear. But like, then they had a high point that, they answered the question right. Or they got to be the end of the line. That's like the coveted position for second graders, by the way. Like the
Mhm.
end of the line, it means that you're trustworthy. And I'm like, I was always at the front. What does that mean? But yes, but that I love that strategy. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, so like,
that's great though. And there's actually in the field of positive psychology, which is like the part of psychology that instead of focusing on what went wrong in my past and how is that causing things to happen now and what do I need to fix, it's more of what's working for you and what's
I
going well.
like that.
Yeah, and I love it, and it's where a lot of like the true mindfulness and stress management techniques kind of come into play there. But one of the things is to end, like if you end your day or you end your work day or kind of whatever, if there's a big event that's happening in your day, but if you end it on a positive, like a positive note or a high note, or even just remember a high note that happened, you're going to think of the entire experience as being more positive.
Mhm.
So, like doing that with your kids is such a great tool for managing stress because and your kids are probably not even knowing that that's what's happening. But when you think about like, you're not ignoring the things that didn't work, but you're shifting the focus at the end to, okay, that happened, but also this wonderful thing happened. And so then if that's how they end their day, when they think about their entire day, that's going to be the thing that sticks with them, is that final piece of, this really went well today. And I was, had this great moment and this really worked for me. So the entire day can feel more positive, even though some not so great things might have happened too. So that's awesome.
I know. It's honestly, we've worked on being present because because mommy has a propensity to put more on her plate than is necessary or healthy. So trying to say and focus on, I need to be present in this moment has helped me be mindful. And the kids and I and like, we've talked to the kids like, hey, if mommy and daddy are working on their phones, like call us out on it, right? And so the boys will even say, like, Mom, you are not present. And I'm like, also, it's really cute to hear Bear like finally get the PR combo. So like, whoop,
Aw,
whoop, thank you, Dr.
yeah.
Angela. Okay. All right. So how can we, because we have several major events coming up. One, a certain somebody is turning 8, a certain somebody else is turning 43, and it's not me because I'm still holding into my 30s. But and then we have Thanksgiving, and then Christmas, and then New Year's, and I also know that there's Hanukkah and Kwanzaa and everything getting crammed in the next couple weeks. And if there's a holiday that I forgot, I apologize. But how do we use mindfulness to reduce this stress? Because I'm not going to lie, it's going to be eventful.
Yeah, it is. It's such it's such a wonderful time of year because there's so much, we sometimes, at least for a few of the days, we focus on gratitude or on love, on peace, on, you know, family, and but
Mhm.
then that can also put on some pressure sometimes. And then it's also, like you mentioned at the very beginning, figuring out your schedule and when are schools open, when are they not, when are we seeing kids, when are my kids going to be home, like figuring out
Mhm.
all of those pieces. And then there's that pressure that's always there, but this year it's like a little different, but that pressure of like doing it right for the holidays, like nailing it really. And it's
Mhm.
kind of that pressure that we just, we don't even realize is there sometimes. And then there's the, how am I going to finish up my work before I take a break for the holidays? And if I don't, how much am I going to do over the break? And will I be finished in time? And then things have to start again. And so
Mhm.
there's just that continual stress from work. So when we have that, we can use mindfulness for this. And it's some of the things that we were just talking about. So we can reflect on our day and maybe do like a gratitude journal or talk it out with your family and have a moment where you think, okay, here's the things that were challenging today, but here's also a good moment from the day or something that's working. And this starts to shift your brain out of focusing on the things that aren't going to work, because that's just what our brains do. And this is why stress is not our fault. Like our brains are trained to look for things that are going to be threatening and stressful to us, because our brain perceives stress as a threat. And
Mhm.
it's kind of a survival instinct that just backfires completely in our world right now, because there's so much to be stressed about and so many things that trigger it. And so our brain is automatically going to look for that. And then once it sees something that's not going well, it's going to keep looking for more and more to protect you. But that just makes you more stressed out. So it's kind of like when you have a bad day and then you start, maybe you like call your best friend and you're talking about it, and there's just like 25 things or more that you can think of that went really wrong that day. And it's like, on top of this, this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened. And it's really hard to notice if there was anything good in that mix, because our brain is just looking at what went wrong.
And
So
it's so easy.
it
It's
is
so
easy.
easy to let, like, I can't tell you how many times, like, I can just pick up the phone and, like, call and just vent. I just need to get it off. But, like, I have to, like, conscientiously, 'cause, when I was a kid, my dad would say, "All right, if you're gonna" well, the G-rated version was, "If you're gonna fuss." My family was Navy, like, we just colorful vocabulary is, like, the spice of life. But if you're going to fuss about a situation, then with your second breath, what are you doing to resolve it?
Oh, yeah.
Right? Right?
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, when you're 7 and you're just upset about a tiny problem, not I mean, life, but it made me the woman that I am today. But I
Yeah.
have to make the conscientious switch that, like, okay, if I'm gonna pick up the phone and I'm gonna call Aaron and be like, "Oh my god, I have this super stressful situation. This happened," rah, 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 rah," then I say, "Okay, all right, but I think I can do this, this, and this," and then switch over into like, how do I fix it? But or like who I can call to help fix it. Yeah, yeah, just some
Yeah.
thought.
Yeah, and
Okay.
it's true. It helps you shift, like, and having some sort of mantra like that, like, or some sort of, motto or something that just kind of triggers you to, like, okay, yes, I've got to get this out, or I want to kind of talk this through, but then this is
Mhm,
going to happen. Or, just noticing if it's just like, this was a really bad day, but what can I think that also went well? And how can I focus on that and do more of this, or let
mhm,
this be where, like in our work, sometimes we focus so much on the things that we're not good at, and we decide, like, I am not good at this, I'm not good at this, so I'm going to focus on getting better at these. But we forget to look at the things that, as an SLP, like, we're really good at already. And we forget that we can do good things, and that we can do even better with those things that we're already really good at doing, and we can, like, enhance what we're doing. And if we're getting, if we have something we're really good at, we can help even more people with that. And it's not that we're ignoring these other things and saying, like, well, I'm not good at helping people with our tick, so I'm just not going to do any of that, like. But
oh,
it's
but I don't wanna do that.
and sometimes we're really, sometimes we don't have to, but
Sorry, I'm, like,
no,
very
totally.
no, I'm like, I don't wanna do that though.
But
Let's
you know what?
clarify.
But, like, and it's kind of, you have focused on the things that you love as
Feeding
an
and
SLP, right?
swallowing. Yes, yes,
And
very
so,
much so.
kind of when we're able to find that niche, or just that thing that we're really good at doing and we want to know more about, it can help you feel better about what you're doing and feel more excited about it, but then also help you grow and help more people, and feel that connection to what you're doing, which
Mhm,
gets really lost when we get really stressed and we get really burnt out, because we
mhm,
start to feel disconnected from our work and that we're not making a difference, and that just helps that stress to grow even more. So one thing is to, not ignore what's not working, but start to focus more on what is working. And then taking moments to just check in with yourself. Like, maybe when you first wake up, or when you first get to work, or maybe when you're, like, leaving work at the end of the day before you're trying to get home. But checking in and seeing, like, okay, how am I doing today? Like, what percent am I at today? Where am I setting the bar for myself? Because we tend to be, like we said, we tend to be perfectionists. So we tend to assume that we're going to be 100% every day. And then when we wake up and we're not 100%, we're like, well, how dare I? How dare I not be 100% today? And so we expect ourselves to get there, but we might have a day where we're just not, we're not feeling good physically, mentally, whatever it might be, and our bar is going to be 40%. So if we expect ourselves to be 100% when we're only going to top out at 40, we're going to be disappointed and we're going to feel stressed. But if we check in and we say, realistically, here is how I am, and we give 100% of that 40%, you know what I mean? Like, we are fully there where we can be, even if it's just 40% of what we can normally give, we'll feel better about it, and we'll feel like we did more, and we're able to be what we needed to be that day.
Okay, so you and I first met, my god, was it March?
Yeah, I
Was
think
it
so.
I think it was in March for the teletherapy boot camp thing, and
Mhm.
you said something that was so profound to me,
Oh,
and it has literally changed how I process and assess my self-worth, like, fundamentally. You said because I was total panic mode, and I was like, "But what am I gonna do? My list is so long. I have all of these things to do." And you said, "No, Michelle, what you phrase it said it's not your to-do list. You need to reassess it as your must-do list."
yeah.
And that I was like, "Oh my god. Okay. So I reevaluated my to-do list and said, yes, all of this, it's literally a spiral bound notebook, is must do or is to do. But I'm going to pick out like one or two things that must be done today. And that has so greatly helped me manage my mental health and my sense of purpose and the stress going through everything. Because honestly, I think that's what allowed me to juggle the time to finish writing. Like really truthfully, like on so many different levels. And it just that one trick, switching over from and everything has to be done to a must-do list. And I know going into this season, like I will start feeling stressed about like, okay, we're gonna have like the family elephant in the room game that we play, like where it's like we get really inappropriate games and gifts and then wrap them and then share them, but we have to watch that because now the children are old enough to like kind of figure out what's going on. So like, but like everybody has the game where you like draw a name and you like pass the gift around. I guarantee it's not as much fun as my family. So but like, but like there's those added stress. I have that to plan, and like we all try to like outdo each other like with like the stupidity of the gift, but like, and I'm going to have all of these little things that the mental fatigue of carrying that in my head, when I put it all on a piece of paper, it's incredibly overwhelming. But when I have it on one piece of paper and then I turn the paper over and on the next page, I just say, okay, today I'm going to do these two things. And then I mark it off the list. And it just, thank you, Jessi, like that. Like,
You're
oh my
welcome.
God, honey. Like I just, yeah, air hug.
Oh, thank
Hygienic
you. Well,
elbow bump.
I'm so happy that that worked for you, and
Yeah.
it is. So it's like instead of because to-do lists really are endless, and they do become just like
Yes.
a book sometimes of this
Yes.
ongoing. We have that with we moved to the house that we're at like 3.5 years ago, I think, and it
Mhm.
was like a total fixer upper. So we're still working on a lot because we have really little kids, and like a baby and a porno. So it's, like, hard to do anything, and then now, we've this year, they've just been here all the time with us, and so it's really hard to do. So, yeah, like, we make a to-do list, and then we feel really overwhelmed, but if we think about a must-do list, it helps. So, like, with the must-do, like, if you look at your week, you pick, like, like the one big thing you want to do and or the maybe two things if you're like, okay, I know I can do two things. But then you pick the little things each day that can help instead of saying, I'm going to do 50 things this week and then when they don't get done, you know that that wasn't realistic, but you still feel really like upset with yourself for not doing it, and then that adds to the stress, and then your brain's like, hey, we're stressed, let's start noticing all the things we're doing wrong, and then you just get
Mhm.
stuck in this mode again. So yeah,
It's a
having it broken
spiral.
down
It's
can
like a
help.
yes. Yes, that's what it did. It was the breaking the action item down into digestible action items. Okay, also, while we were talking, I was on Etsy and they have the most beautiful gratitude journals when you're talking about like writing things down. And I like to color. Um, my husband got me a great coloring book a
It's
couple years
soothing.
ago. Yes. But they have a grounded in gratitude journal, and some of them even have like coloring pages. And I think I might need to add that to my list. So,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
your must-do for
yes.
today.
Uh-huh.
Order this journal.
Order another coloring book. Oh my God. You are not helping my Etsy situation here, friend. Oh, yes. Okay. All right. So what other ways do you recommend that we add mindfulness
Yeah.
in to help reduce the stress?
So one thing that I think is really key, whether you are gonna use this on your break, like when you're kind of working through, like when you have parties and when you have things you're planning, and then you have time that you want to be present with your family, or if it's something you're going to use just going into kind of this hectic season where with work and then holidays and all of this. So one thing to do is to have like to infuse your day with self-care or with mindfulness by creating little pockets throughout your schedule. So if you think about like your work day, having a moment at the beginning of your work day where you're not just like, especially if you work in teletherapy or you're working from home, where you're not just like, okay, work starts at, first session is at 8 o'clock. I'm going to walk into my office at 7:55 because I don't have a commute. It gives you time to log in, but it doesn't give you time to like breathe and to settle in. So giving yourself little buffers, which I know is so common sense and we all think that we're doing it, but a lot of the time we're not actually doing it.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
having that buffer, and it could be that you're using it to like actually gather materials that you need or physically getting things ready, but it could just be having, like time to sit there for a moment and sip your coffee before you actually log in or having a moment for yourself. So kind of almost creating like a little morning routine and then doing the same thing at the end of your day before you just say like I'm at home, I'm logging out, I'm so stressed, I want to be done with this, I'm just going to walk out the door and then I'm at home. Or if you're driving and you have a commute of some kind, giving yourself that moment either during your commute to use it or before you walk in the door to your house, but giving yourself a moment to kind of unwind from the day, like gather things you might need for the next day, but giving yourself also some kind of like a transition where you're going to let your brain know that work is done. Because if we just log out and then walk immediately out into our house and we're like, "Oh my gosh, finally my day is done. Like I can be out here and I can be with my family." You'll physically be there, but mentally, you'll probably still be thinking about all of the things that you need to do tomorrow. Or, oh my gosh, I didn't prep for this and I should have gotten these things. And oh, who am I even seeing tomorrow? And what does my day look like? And so you'll be with your home life or be doing those things that you wanted to be able to get out and do, but you won't be present. Like we were talking about when your sons are like, Mom, you're not present, you're on your phone.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
that even though you're there with them, you're not experiencing it. And so it makes it where you just feel like you're juggling things and mentally you're exhausted from it and you get more drained and more stressed. So having something that's like a little routine that lets your brain know, hey, work is done for the day. Like maybe if you're on your way home, you listen to like your favorite podcast or music or audiobook if you have a commute. And if you're not having a commute, maybe you before you leave your office, if you have an office space, you like if you want to meditate, you could meditate or you could sit and do some stretches or a workout or go outside and take a walk if the weather is nice where you are. But having something that you do that just gives you that little buffer, it could be 5 minutes, it could be however long you want it to be, but having that little buffer at the end of your day that just lets you know, like, okay, I'm shifting into being out and finished with my work, but I'm not just going to jump into it because I need that moment to settle
Yes.
back in.
Um, that helps. I have an hour and 15-minute long commute.
Ooh.
And yeah, I do 3 days a week. Well, which honestly, after like I do home health all day Thursday. I travel back and forth to university 3 days a week. And then Tuesdays, I only see one patient for home health, right? So like I'm an hour and 15-minute one way really doesn't feel like that much when you're used to traveling 30 to 45 minutes. It's basically two conversations. I can get finish the work. You know how there's like work and then there's like the after work, like calling the physicians and doing those things. Siri is my new best friend because I'm like, hey Siri, wait, I don't want to turn her on. Oh no, it's okay. Thank you. Shh. I turn Siri on, but like I turn her on and then we call up the doctors and we do all the things, but like that helps me finish work. So by time I'm home, um it it's I am more present, right? Yep.
Mhm. Yeah, it can
Mhm.
help. And then not having that commute with teletherapy, and I know a lot of people are working from home or like schools are kind of back and forth with things. Um It's really wonderful because, it's kind of one of the benefits that we talk about is that there is no commute. So if you don't like being stuck in traffic, you can be at home. But it does get, I worked in teletherapy for like 4 years before all of this hit. And so it really is easy to just think like, all right, I start in like 10 minutes. I'm just going to I can take my dog out, I can make a cup of coffee, I can do all this. And then you're like, and then you race in to log in right on time. And then you end your day the same way. Like, all right, I can see people until 4 and then I'm just at home. So I'm already here. I don't have to be anywhere. But it takes away those moments that can sometimes give you room to breathe and can give you room to decompress from your day. So having some sort of buffer can really, really help.
I'm just thinking what will I like the buffer. But I mean, I have to physically I make it a point to take my earbuds out of my ear, and when I walk through the front gate, that's my buffer. And when it was all
Yeah.
teletherapy, my buffer was coming up the stairs. Like I had to breathe deep on the stairwell when I came up the stairs. Well, I don't
Yeah.
know. Not me necessarily too deep because sometimes like little boys they smell bad sometimes. So like okay. All right. Um we're going to get our buffer times in. We're going to manage all of this, but I'm thinking about like some schools aren't coming back after Thanksgiving break. So some schools will, but I also know that some school districts are canceling school early so that they're not back for like 2 or 3 weeks to then turn around and go out for like the from between Thanksgiving and Christmas holiday and then coming back in January. And I understand that they're doing that so that individuals can go and see their families and then they can self quarantine again if necessary without missing a lot of school. But like somehow in my head, that's going to make it even harder to come back in January. You know what I
Oh,
mean? Because
yeah.
you're going to have been out for like 6 weeks, 8 weeks, and then you're going to have to roll right back all into
Yeah,
it.
it's like a
So,
summer break again.
yes, I mean, South Carolina talks about going to the year-round school. I've heard them say that. I'm like, "Oof," but I don't know about that. So, like, as it's basically been like a year off from school this year. But anywho, so, like, how can we use mindfulness to help reduce the stress at the end of the break, like, when we do have to go back to work?
Yeah, so that is definitely a big thing that happens is stress when we are heading back into work, right? Like whether it's from a summer break or it's from just like a long weekend even, or it's this, strange winter season break that we're having this year, whatever however many there are or however long the one is. But,
Yeah.
it's really exciting to sometimes be able to take that break. But a couple things can happen over the break. So one thing that we tend to do is when we're stressed, like when we're stressed, our like mindset and our energy is like this, I got to do more. I've got to push and if I just do one more thing, then everything will be okay. And
Yes,
then,
that's
you know,
literally how I feel.
but then you do the one more thing and you're like, okay, one more thing and then I'll be okay. And we keep
Ah!
like,
And then
you know?
I'm at work until 6 or 7 o'clock
Yeah.
at night. Yes.
And then
Yes.
it just makes you more stressed. So, but it's
Mhm.
like it's almost like hyper, like we're like, "Okay, yes, yes, we can do more," but it's totally frazzled and scattered, and that's why we call the next thing that happens is burnout because you're like you can only have that energy burning in you for so long before it just like and you burn out. Um, but so with that, when you're on a break, a lot of times what happens is if you're in that energy, you're like, cool, I have a break. I don't have to work, but I can get a few things done over break that'll get me ahead and help me feel better when I head back into work. And then you end up spending your break working. And sometimes it's nice because like if you're really creative and you're taking this time to work on creative projects that you weren't able to do before because you were doing, therapy all the time, but you had some creative things you wanted to do and they're kind of more like a passion project, it can be fun to do, but you're still not truly getting that break from work because it is still work related. But then sometimes we just do our paperwork over our breaks and we save it all because we're like, all right, if I can just get this done, I'll be more set when I go back to work. But we're not actually getting the break that our brains and our bodies need. But then on the flip side, when you're in burnout, you're like detached and disconnected and kind of just like, you show up to work because you have to and you do a good job because you have to, but you're not really like invested in it. Like you're not there really. And so
Mhm.
when you're in that, you kind of use your break almost to like ignore and pretend that you have a different, life and job. And it's like, SLP, what's that? I don't know. I'm just here on break. Like I don't have a job. I'm off for the day. So we ignore the work until we have to go back. And then that can be really upsetting when you've kind of been not doing anything, not preparing for anything, not, you know, even facing the fact that like you have a job that's really stressful and that aspect of life can be really hard. So when you actually do have to face it again, it's really, really difficult. So we tend to be in kind of those two where we're either working our whole break and not taking a break we need, or we're ignoring and pretending that we don't have a job. And then when we go back to it, it's really stressful. But either way, it leads to like, the day or the weekend before you head back, like you just feel this like growing sense of dread and like the kind of like Sunday blues that people talk about sometimes where like
My husband used to have that.
yeah.
Like, he doesn't in his like, he started a new job in January, and he doesn't have it like he used to, but, like,
Oh,
oh
that's
my
good.
god. But, like, 4 o'clock on a Sunday, it was like this cloud came over his
Mhm.
face, and yeah, but, I mean, like, super glad that he doesn't have that anymore, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, where it's
Mhm.
like everything's good, and then when you realize like, oh, it's time to start getting ready, then things just start to like you start to feel really bad, and you either start to feel like blue about it, or you can feel panicked about it. It just however your brain and body kind of interpret what you're feeling. And so that can happen when we're on a break. And if it's, if you're facing an extended break, it might extend what you're feeling. And so you kind of have to see like, is it going to be helpful to have a must do list and to plan one thing that you're going to work on over break? Or is it really helpful for you to take that time to, where you can, if you're feeling burnt out and you're kind of like ignoring and pretending like you never have to go back to work, would it be good to maybe do some, really deep self-care and mindfulness, like maybe sitting and doing some journaling practices about what's not going, that what's not working, but what is working, and how can I make this be, have more of this show up when I head back in January? Or what changes can I make in my day that are going to help me more? Am I not having a transition? Do I want to have a morning routine so I start my day off a little bit less rushed? Or do I need an evening routine to help me wind down and sleep better so I feel better the next day? Kind of maybe taking time to look at those things. And it's hard during the holiday season because even if we're not working, things are usually pretty packed with maybe, whether it's this year going to see families, or, having like Zoom holiday parties, or, just feeling kind of, if you're not able to meet with your family this year, that might be a whole different feeling that you're feeling. Um and so being mindful of that on top of it, and trying to, just carve out some time to take care of you. And that is really what like stress management is taking care of yourself. It's taking care of you, because like you are important, even though there are other people in our lives, whether it's our families or our patients, our clients, our students, that are also important and that we give everything to. Like we as SLPs have to remember, like, we are people too, and we are important. And so we have to take care of ourselves. And that's really, on a holiday, it can be really hard to do, but it's still so important to do. And you'll feel that much better when you do head back into work in January.
Mhm. I'm just thinking of all of the self-care things that we inevitably okay, we're healers, right? Like, that's our job. We help people heal regardless of what size human they are, but that's key. And so my my friend Paul, he talked about therapeutic presence, and he's mentored me in therapeutic presence. Paul is the biggest OT I've ever met in my life. And he's not big. He's just like muscly and tall, right?
Mhm.
He walks in and he is like the BFG, like the big friendly giant. Like that's how I describe him to families because like he's the early intervention OT. It's gonna take your breath away when the giant buff or the tall buff
Mhm.
guy walks into like, you know, he can palm an infant, right? Like hold him like a basketball. And but his therapeutic presence is that of the big friendly giant. He's calming and he's centered and he sings the best rendition of row 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 your boat I've ever heard, and I
Oh.
would fight somebody for that. Like it's great, right? And totally off key and out of tune, but like it's great. um but when we are burnt and run ragged, our therapeutic presence is skewed.
Mhm.
And like I'm okay, like I know people believe in empath or not being empaths, but I am, and I will carry the burdens that I have, and it will impede my ability to fully present my therapeutic presence. And if I can't help the tiny human heal because I am not addressing what I need to address, then we have a problem. In the middle of the chaos, we have to manage
Yeah.
and allot time for self-care. And it's more than wine and bubble baths.
Yes.
Granted, those are great, and I love wine and bubble baths. Oh, I need to get some bath bombs. That would make for good stuffers. Sorry. But note to self, add that to the must-do list. Da, da, da. But see, I also think SLPs have ADD, or at least I do.
Oh, yeah, for
But
sure.
yeah, but I
It's
mean,
another one of those.
yes, yes, but, like, for me, true self-care comes from exercise, whether it's simply getting outside and doing a couple laps around.
Mm,
Um, one of my girlfriends, Hillary, she always posts pictures of her on her nature trail hikes on Saturday and Sunday, and
yeah.
I love it. I love seeing the pictures of the trees because, I mean, if it's raining here and I mean, she lives a couple hours away, then I'm like, the sun is shining somewhere else.
Mm.
Um, Although I'm not going to want to go on a nature hike in the snow. I'm out for that.
Oh, that's, like, my favorite time to go.
No, it's cold, it's wet, everything gets soggy, and then you come inside and I mean, it's like you can't get the chill out of your bones. And no, I am too southern for that. Everything is wrong. Give me a good old fashioned hurricane. I know what to do with that. A blizzard? Nope. Uh,
It's so true, though, but that is, in my programs, the main things that we talk about for self-care are, like, the deeper ones, and it's meditation, and you can kind of take that, there's so many different ways, and I know a lot of people hear meditation and they're like, "Ugh," because it's like you think of it as being this, like, the yogi on a mountaintop type of situation, but, meditation can just be like taking some time to sit, you know, in your favorite chair, or, like, lay on the floor and just, like, breathe for 10 breaths. Um, it can be as, like, involved as you want it to be, but it helps your brain. It helps you breathe deeper, which then lets your body know, "Hey, I'm okay." And then even if things are not great, it almost, like, tricks you into thinking for a moment, like, things are okay, and then when you kind of do that, it can help you to then feel okay and to be able to problem solve, and it helps your brain, to rewire the stress response that it has, so you're not as triggered by things that are stressful, and you're able to, like, work through them more. But then it also just gives you a moment, like a little break in your day, that you can be alone and you can just say, I'm going to focus on this one thing. I'm just going to focus on sitting and breathing and nothing else for 5 minutes. And then the
um,
other thing is movement. Like you said, like, getting up and moving is such a powerful thing to do. And
mhm.
getting outside and connecting to nature can just, like, take it over the top, It's just it's such a great thing. But even just stretching a little bit, like, in between your sessions, or, when you're leaving someone's house right before you get into your car, or whatever it might be. And then the other thing is journaling, like gratitude, or if you've had a really stressful moment that keeps spiraling and replaying, just like writing it down so you can take a new perspective and know that it's there if you ever need to look at it, but it doesn't have to stay in your head. And then wine and bubble baths are great, but they're not true self-care. They're like a little moment that's nice and you're doing something good for yourself. especially bubble bath. I'm just not like a bubble bath person. I never have been, but I know when you are
Well,
a bubble bath person, you are like you
it's a
love it.
thing.
Yeah.
Well, it's a thing, and when we bought this house, I didn't think about that. I was like, "Oh, it has a tub." I didn't think I'm gonna have children, they're gonna be gross, and I'm going to have one bubble bath tub for the entire I mean, we have, like, showers, right? But not, like, a tub, and so
Mhm.
now the one bubble bath tub is, like it's tiny boy heaven, and there's, like, we have engineering cogs so they can, like, pour the water and, like, it turns the cogs and goes through the pipes and do all the things, but, like, there I am in the bubble bath with the doors locked, surrounded by Eric Carle's the caterpillar, the very hungry caterpillar motif maps and cogs with my glass of wine. I mean, normally I'm also
Absolutely.
reading Harry Potter, but like que sera.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We have the same. We have like our bathroom that would have the tub we're renovating, and so it's not,
Mhm.
and that won't be finished, for years. But we have a tub in our garage. It's been there for a year. We have it in there. That's not one you can use, right? It's in a
No,
box. It's not in, and so yeah, ours is our kids' bathroom is like where if we were going to take a bubble bath, that's where it would be. Um, and it's interesting. It is. It's not quite the same zen that you would,
no,
but if you could do it and that's what you love, you do it. Um, but yeah, but things that help you check in, like take a moment for yourself, check in and see how you are and be able to like process more. And like having a glass of wine can if you're taking that and you're taking time to like write in your journal, have a glass of wine, that can be great. Sometimes with wine or like Netflix, those things we like go into binge motal like, mentality with it. And we're like,
Mhm.
I need this because my day was so hard. And, with wine, that has its own problems that can come up from that.
Mhm.
But even with like Netflix, we do that, right? Or like Hulu, whatever streaming service, we're like, I have had such a hard day. I'm just going to watch all the shows. And that's like our self care. But that's like a totally different, that's checking out for the day. That's like checking
Yeah,
out, ignoring what's going on, not going to deal with stress. And that just lets the stress build behind you. So that when you do come
yes,
back to it, it's like, oh gosh, there's so much now.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, you said something about the movement, about how profound the movement is.
Mhm.
I did 3 months of bed rest with Theodore.
Oh,
3 months, 14 times I had labor stopped, 14 times. And it was that like the stress was unreal, right? And all I could do was just lay in order to grow a baby.
oh,
And so I got up and down to do a little bit of stretching when my contractions weren't heavy, just so that, I mean, circulation, we were worried about DVTs, like, like the whole 9 yards. I actually found the picture. It popped up on Time Hop and I just texted it to you.
mhm.
And dog was showing me the proper position for downward facing dog. But like
Oh,
those, those moments
oh.
of also, excuse the total pregnant chick haircut because I was, like, done, just cut it all off, but, like, those I relished in those moments when I could physically move my body because I couldn't move my body, right?
Yeah.
And and something about doing teletherapy and sitting at a desk for so long, you don't realize how much that movement is critical. And we have become more sedentary because
Mhm.
of the pandemic. And it's just it's very yeah. Yeah, it's movement is key
It
for
is,
self-care.
it is. When I took my break from being an SLP, it was for almost 5 years, and I taught yoga and, like, mind body fitness classes, like 10 or more classes a week for a long time. And then when I stopped, it was because I had a baby and the studio was closing and it was just kind of like a whole, maybe I'll try something else. And I decided to come back and be an SLP part-time, and it was in teletherapy. And so I went from
Mhm.
moving my body a lot to
Yeah.
having a baby, and I had a C-section. So for me, I didn't move much after that. It didn't feel good for me. And that was, kind of hard. But then working in teletherapy, I was excited to work and I love the work, but I did not realize and I wasn't working I was working like 10 hours a week. I did not realize how much I would be sitting and how
Mhm.
how much that would start to affect, and it definitely affected my mental well-being and physical well-being, just sitting
Mhm.
so much. And I really had to be careful making my schedule and saying what hours I could work and how many students I could take on in the next school year, because I wanted to make sure I still had time to move and to get up, and even if it was just to, like, walk downstairs and fill up my water bottle and then walk back upstairs, like just having, or like go outside and breathe for a few minutes and then come back inside. um it's really important, and it can totally, your brain needs it, your body needs it. It reduces the tension that we get from sitting. And then when we feel tense like in our muscles, we feel tense in our brain. When we feel tense in our brain, we feel tense in our muscles, and they just keep going back and forth. And then we're just
It's a
like,
cycle. Yeah.
it is, and we're like a big ball of stress, and we're like, ow, everything hurts, and I don't feel good, and I'm just like so stressed out. And movement is just like so wonderful, and it's something like you can feel and you can do. Like with journaling, it's awesome, but sometimes, I've had someone say, like, "I'm so overwhelmed with paperwork, the last thing I wanna do is look at more paper." And it's like, "You know what? I hear you. That's okay."
That's why I
But
like the coloring,
yeah,
the
right?
coloring journals.
And then with meditation, it can sometimes, you're never sure if you're doing it right. That's, and the thing is, like, you can never really do it wrong, but it's not something that we can, like, feel as much. So when you're starting out with mindfulness and you're starting out with like managing stress, sometimes movement is just the place that, like, it's somewhat familiar. I know I can do something, and I can feel that I feel better. I can feel my body moving, and that it's helping, me breathe more, or thoughts are starting to flow more, or I just feel good when I'm not, my back feels better when I'm moving, or my neck feels less tense. So it's a really good place to start.
Yes. Okay, so bottom line, get up, wiggle your bum, even in the stretchy pants, with the 15 pounds from the carb diet, because we're
Mhm.
all going to do that this pandemic holiday season. Dun, dun, dun. I mean, I'm hoping I don't gain the 15 pounds, but like, I'm not going to lie. I've been taking Pinterest videos of like vegetarian turkey, or not vegetarian turkey, vegetarian stuffing for like the last couple weeks. So, like, it's happening. Okay. If all right, I've got to switch this over to questions, and oh my god, I have so much fun talking to you. I have missed you. Okay. If someone wants to learn more from you, where can they find you?
They can find me at jessiandricks.com, and there's podcast episodes there. You can find the SLP Stress Management course there. And you can also find the SLP Toolbox, which is like a free resource library of meditation audios and like movement audio. So you can like listen to me giving you a little, I'm not going to say workout because we think of it more mindful than that, but working you through a little movement practice, or some templates to, for gratitude or self care checklists. So you can find all of that at jessiandricks.com. And again, there is the SLP stress management course there as well that we talked about at the very beginning. And then you can also find me on Instagram at Jessi Andricks.
I love the gratitude workbooks because my husband's company was doing a Brene Brown leadership training for all the management, and he told me, he was like, baby, he was like, we do this every day. Every morning we wake up and we say as a family what we're grateful for with breakfast, or like when we're driving the kids into school. And he was like, she was sharing in one of her books how the most positive people have the most grateful hearts because they choose that.
Hmm.
And I thought that was beautiful. So, in the middle of all of this, stuffing, stretchy pants, the whole 9 yards, if you want to address the stress, choose gratitude. So, okay, hold on. Let me switch over to questions really quick, okay?